Be to, like, somehow
live.
be...
I wanted her to live really, really hard too, but it didn't happen. Geraldine still had a man's tie around her neck. It was the same tie that was used to strangle her.
That's upsetting. I'm angry.
It's incredibly upsetting, and it hurts my heartstrings in a lot of ways. Timothy was again questioned by police and started to change his story multiple times. And
right, because he doesn't know anything and he's not sure what's going to get everyone away.
Timothy is truly a mess. He's lost his wife. He's lost his baby girl.
Right.
And he's also, too, by all accounts, not an incredibly intelligent man and can't handle the pressure. And
right.
cannot even formulate a story that he can stick to.
Right, but let's take into account, too, that he lost his wife because someone that he trusted said that he could help them with a situation that he was not capable of supporting.
That's right, because that motherfucker, John Christie, who's a terrible human being, came into that situation and promised them that he could help them. And he was like a beacon of light for them at one point.
Right, when everything seemed harder because of him not being able to gain.
And he took advantage of them. Exactly.
Oh, I hate it.
Back into the story now.
No.
Big picture.
No.
Like I was saying.
No.
Timothy was again questioned by police and started changing his story multiple times. At this point, he even began telling them that he had strangled Beryl during a fight over their mounting debts. Because of Timothy's limited mental capabilities and the stress of being interrogated, police then called upon John Christie to come in for questioning, as it had become incredibly strenuous for them to get anything factual or useful out of Timothy.
Right.
Of course, when they called John Christie in for questioning, he denied having anything to do with the murders, and after some careful coaching, his wife, Ethel, corroborated the story that he had given to the police.
Oh, that poor woman. Holy cow. I can't even imagine what happened to her.
You don't even know yet.
Oh, good.
This was about the point where the story began to become hard for me to continue to read and do research on.
Yeah, it's not great.
You know, just, I mean, hurting a baby and then just like thinking about like this innocent man's suffering.
Right, because the baby, pulled a knife on you? Fuck you.
Exactly, yeah. Timothy went to trial on January 11th, 1950. And his defense team had failed to follow up on the various inconsistencies in the testimony offered by John and Ethel Christie. Instead, John took the stand as a witness for the prosecution and had apparently made a great impression upon the jury.
Do we know about his standing, whether or not he might be a sociopath or a psychopath?
I don't know about that. I didn't read that in the article, but
okay.
I think that that's a fair assumption.
Right. I try not to assume, because obviously people that are sociopaths or psychopaths are not murderers most of the time.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, and you do have to be kind of delicate when you delve into the world of psychology, especially with serial killers, because there's a whole myriad of things that could or potentially could not
be factors
into it. Exactly. Although Timothy Evans maintained his innocence and attempted one single appeal, he was wrongfully hanged for the murder of his wife and daughter on March 9th, 1950.
I'm furious.
I know, I get really sad.
I legitimately don't know how to make this into words.
I get really sad about it.
I'm furious.
The way that I found this case was because I searched wrongful executions or people that had been exonerated after they were executed. And that's how I stumbled upon the story. Because Timothy Evans was a man that was tried, found guilty, and executed for something that he didn't do.
And he was heartbroken over. And not only did he not do it, but he knew he didn't do it and still stuck to the story that would prove that he did it.
And the whole way through, too, I think that one of the things that speaks to his character and breaks my heart in a lot of ways is that he still didn't want to implicate John Christie, because he, up until the point where he was being hanged, believed that he was somebody who was trying to help them.
Right.
So after the trial, John Christie, who apparently was already a hypochondriac and had been for years, started to become very unhinged, and his hypochondriasis worsened. He became severely depressed and lost a considerable amount of weight. And then John lost his job at the post office.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good, though.
Afterward, he found it difficult to maintain any job for a prolonged period of time.
Good. So now he's in the place of the person that he helped to murder via a court system.
Precisely.
Good.
In December of 1952, John's wife, Ethel, who we remember...
Yes, because she has a great name.
She went missing.
I'm surprised. So surprised.
I detect a tinge of sarcasm in your voice.
Almost like you might know me a little bit.
So John began telling their friends that she had moved back to Sheffield and no longer wanted to live with him and wanted to be alone. He told relatives, however, that Ethel was too ill to communicate with them, and that's why she wasn't speaking to them. And in an attempt to keep up appearances and not raise suspicions, John began to send people gifts in the mail that were marked as being from both of them and putting Ethel's name on things.
What?
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, obviously, he planned it out. But if you're saying that he doesn't, or rather, she doesn't want to be with you, and you're still putting both your names on gifts, my immediate thought would be like, who's sending this to me?
Okay, but that being said, that's the thing about it. He gave a different story to friends than he did family. That being said, here's what actually happened to Ethel Christie. John Christie strangled his wife and then placed her corpse beneath the floorboards in his home's parlor. Neighbors began complaining of the foul odors coming from the Christie residence, and so John then began to treat the house with strong disinfectants to mask the scent of her rotting flesh. On January 19th of 1953, John offered another secret abortion to a 25-year-old pregnant sex worker named Rita Nelson.
What? Why? Okay, I get feeling desperate in this time period, but why?
Would you trust a random dude who just said he knew how to perform an abortion?
I mean, I get desperation. I really do.
It was a different time, and it was something that was taboo in the country.
Well, it's still taboo.
Well, at least in England, specifically, it's legal now.
Right.
He offered this secret abortion to a 25-year-old pregnant sex worker. Her name was Rita Nelson. And Rita suffered the exact same fate as Beryl Evans, and her remains were this time stashed away in an alcove behind a cupboard in John's kitchen.
What? So now it's not even just enough for him to look at the communal garden and be like, hey, look, here's all the things that I did wrong in my entire life. I'm going to put it in my entire living space.
That's right. John is now starting to bury the bodies of his victims very close to home because they're in his home. In February of 1953, John gassed, raped, and strangled another sex worker. This time it was 26-year-old Kathleen Maloney, and she joined Rita in the kitchen alcove the next morning after the murder. Christie's final victim would be 26-year-old Hectorina McLennan. Mm-hmm. She was also gassed, raped, and strangled, and she was buried in the kitchen alcove as well.
So there's a party in the kitchen, but no one wants to be there. I'm upset. I'm angry at you. You ruined my day.
After Hectorina's murder, John wallpapered over that cupboard that concealed the alcove, but he couldn't do anything to mask the smell of the 3 decomposing bodies that lay behind it.
Right.
And also the one under the floorboards in the parlor probably didn't help either.
Right.
John moved out of his home at 10 Rillington Place on March 20th of 1953, and with the residence now empty, the landlord had another tenant who had come in and began renovating the kitchen.
Good.
I'm pretty sure that you can figure out what he discovered. He then
Yeah.
called the police immediately. When police arrived on the scene, they did a thorough investigation of the home, and they discovered the 3 bodies in the kitchen alcove, Ethel's body beneath the floorboards, and the 2 bodies that were buried in the garden. John was apprehended 10 days later on March 31st of 1953. He willingly made statements about 4 of the murders, but had excuses and explanations for all of them. For example, his wife Ethel, she was a fucking mercy killing. She was a mercy killing because Ethel was already choking to death when he strangled her.
What?
He just wanted to end her suffering.
Oh, so we're helping people now.
We are so helping people right now. He is the angel of mercy, sweet baby angel John Christie.
Yeah.
Just scoop him up in your hands and
I have a glory match for him if he likes older women.
the only thing the story is missing now is oatmeal gruel.
'Cause he's
And
a
then
bastard.
his explanation for the 3 sex workers stashed away in the alcove in his kitchen. He said that they became aggressive towards him, forcing him to defend himself.
What's the excuse for the baby?
Well, okay, the baby, that's not a thing yet. That's not a thing yet.
Okay,
It
okay.
will be.
All
We're
right,
getting
all
there.
right,
Literally right this very second.
Okay.
Stop jumping the murder gun.
No.
So, when confronted about the bodies in the garden, John admitted to killing them as well. And then some point down the line also admitted to killing Beryl Evans, but maintained that Beryl Evans was yet another mercy killing.
Okay, so her mercy killing is for what?
I would think that he probably used the fact that she wanted an abortion against her because, once again, what do we do in this period of time? We shame people.
Right, and what do we do still in this period of time where we're at right now? We shame people.
We still shame people wrongfully. John's trial took place on June 22nd of 1953, and he was being tried and charged for the murder of his wife, Ethel.
And that's it? Not the other bodies that were found in his entire house?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. No, I'm not mad. Whatever.
John's defense team at his trial, they had entered a plea of not guilty by
How?
Oh, girl. They had entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity.
No.
The prosecution, however, countered that plea by saying that because of how he concealed the bodies and the work that he went to hide them, he clearly showed an appreciation for the wrongfulness of his actions.
Right. Thank you, prosecution.
Exactly. Thank you, 1950s prosecution, which is something I never thought I would say ever.
The surprise of the day.
So John's trial lasted for 4 days, and the jury returned with a guilty verdict.
Hooray for the jury.
Hooray for that fucking jury. They had returned with a guilty verdict after having only deliberated for 1 hour and 20 minutes.
because he is guilty as all sin.
John Christie was hanged just over 2 weeks later at Pentonville Prison in London on July 15th, 1953, girl.
Success.
Fast forward years later, 1965.
When they talk about the baby.
It's not great. This story has yet one other shade of really sad
Oh,
fucked
good.
upness
I'm
to
so
it.
excited about more shades of sadness.
So in 1965, Timothy Evans was posthumously pardoned for the death of his daughter. Timothy Evans was never pardoned for the death of his wife.
Wait, how?
They flipped it around. When he was originally tried and sentenced and charged and everything, they had it the other way around. They were charging him for the death of his wife, but not his daughter. They were like, okay, well, somebody else clearly did that.
Right.
And then after John Christie died and had confessed and talked about the murders, people had gone in several times, not just once, but several times, and had tried to exonerate Timothy Evans so that he would be pardoned and no longer guilty of the murders of both of them.
Right.
But somewhere down the line, people were angry at the way that investigators were pointing fingers at the police force because investigators were saying that the way that they had handled the questioning and interrogation of Timothy Evans was not an okay way to interrogate somebody.
Yeah, no kidding.
And they had basically forced whatever they got out of him.
Right.
In a way, I personally feel like them not pardoning him from both murders was a way for the police force to save some face. But the fact that he didn't get pardoned for both of them when